As he mentioned, my name is Diva Shrestha. I've been living in the United States for about 9 years now. I decided, I thought I was going to make a very fancy PowerPoint with pictures and everything, and unfortunately, as you can see, I don't have it, right? Things have been very busy with me, so I apologize I don't have a lot of fancy things to show you, but I do want to share my experience of living and working in the United States, as well as studying there for a long time, and try to answer any questions that you might have. Before I start, I just wanted to get a general idea of you guys. How many of you here are looking to apply for bachelor's in the US? Okay, and how many for master's or PhDs? Okay, so primary audience is going for undergrad in the US. All right, a brief background. I want to make this as interactive as possible, and feel free to ask me questions, or if you have any queries, I'll be very happy to talk to you about that as well. As you mentioned, I did work as admissions counselor for a long time, and I continue to do that as a graduate assistant at the School of Public Policy at the University of Maryland, so if you have any questions about that, I can help you as well. Okay, brief information about me. I was born and bred here in Kathmandu. I lived here until 2005, which was when I left the United States for the first time in my life. But it was an interesting story. I never wanted to go to the US. It was never a part of my plan. I actually, as a matter of fact, interestingly, I used to talk to all my friends who were interested in going abroad and studying to tell them about how you should live here in Nepal, and how you should work here in Nepal, and how you should develop the country and all that stuff, right? So even if you were to go abroad, I always tell them to come back and work and all that stuff. So I was that patriotic, nationalistic girl in the class who was always like, no, I'm never going to the United States. That's outside of my boundary and all that stuff. And then I've lived so far 9 years of my life over there. What happened was I didn't want to become a doctor. I really did not want to become a doctor. The one bad thing about the society here, I would say the education system here, is if you're a good student, you have to become a doctor or an engineer, right? That's not a new story for us. And I just didn't want to. I had so many fights in my house, you have no idea, with my parents after 10th grade, when I had to decide if I wanted to do science or commerce. And I said I wanted to do commerce, and that wasn't okay. So they wouldn't let me study commerce. I had to go and study science. And I did for 2 years, and those were the 2 most miserable years of my life. How are you going to spend time studying, right? Like, that was just not me. I did not want to spend my time studying physics, biology, chemistry all my life. So it was a constant struggle, which actually, even until now, this is something that I have to struggle with. The expectation of the society and the expectation of the people around you, which is in a way a good thing, but at the same time, not that good of a thing, right? So that's why I secretly decided I wanted to go abroad to study, because that was the only thing I could do at that time. A few of my friends were preparing to go study in the US, so I basically followed them everywhere. They were taking the SATs, I took the SATs with them, had no idea what the SAT was, and just went in and took the exam. They used to come here a lot, so I came here a lot, sat in a lot of different sessions. I did one-on-one advising with the USEF staff at that time, and basically utilized the resources here a lot. And it just happened, I went to the US. No idea, no clue what I was doing, no idea what I was going to study, but I decided to study international studies. The idea that I had in my mind was like, you'll study that and then you become a diplomat, you know. It sounds so cool to become a diplomat, right? No idea what that meant, but it sounded really cool. To travel different places, represent your country, so you're still working for your country. So I decided to do international studies. One of my worst subjects in high school was social studies. I hated it. I did not like history. I did not want to do anything with politics. And then there I went to the US, and that's all I had to study was politics and economics and history and everything. But it was a good decision in retrospect. When you look back in your life, all the decisions that you make sound so interesting and so good, because you slowly connect the dots, right? Do you remember Steve Jobs' famous speech? No? Okay, doesn't matter. You should check it out. If you have YouTube, do check it out. So I decided to do that, and it was a wealth of fun. It was a fabulous experience for me. But going to the US, was not that easy of a task. I always thought I was very friendly. I had no problem talking to people. I was always outgoing and everything. But when you're in a different culture, when you're in a different society, all of that kind of just disappears somehow because you are in a different place. You know, the jokes were different, the sarcasm was different, the sentences that they're using, the verbs, the words, you're just like, well, that's not, you know, full stop. We call it full stop, and they're like, it's period, it's not full stop. What is a full stop, right? So little things like that were very interesting to learn. I immediately made a friend in one of my English courses, freshman year. And I made sure I was sat right next to him because he would, without any hesitation, always tell me what was happening, because half the time I had no idea what was happening because of the sentences, because of the words, because of the accent and everything. So it's very helpful to make a friend right away. And it was not easy. It definitely wasn't easy in any way or form, but it was necessary to make a friend, especially when you're going to a place where you only had one other Nepali person with you, and you had no idea how big the place was, you had no idea what. There just wasn't a lot of culture at Nazareth. So Nazareth was a small private liberal arts institution in upstate New York that has very little diversity, had very little diversity, and it was necessary in order to complete the semesters to make your friends, right? And you will make your friends. You'll make friends wherever you go, but you also had to decide as to who to choose. You have to be very careful about that at times, because I have had experiences where making friends wasn't the best option at times. I'm being very cryptic, I understand, but I hope you get the message. The whole get inspired thing, I'm just going to share my story, and I hope that'll inspire you in some way or the other. A couple of things, and I wanted to share with you my learnings as well. You know, 9 years of living away has taught me a lot of different things, and I'd like to share all of that with you. So aside from that, there were a lot of cultural differences that you had to deal with. I told you about the language, but food is another big thing. We're so used to our dal bhat tarkari with a lot of noon and pito and all the different masalas that we use, right? And over there it was just, why is the chicken bland? Like, why is there no noon in anything? I remember, like, we had a bunch of international students, despite all the things. And we'd always hog one table in the dining hall. It was the international student table. We'd always sit there, and literally we'd use to take the salt shaker and the pepper shaker from all the other tables, and it would be in our table because all of us needed a lot of salt and everything. So that was an interesting moment as well, but also a bonding moment because it brought all of us together, and we just hung out that way. And some of my best moments, best memories from undergrad has been at the dining hall in that particular table where we spent hours and hours talking and not doing anything else, you know, wasting your time away talking and not studying. Talking about studying, another thing that I learned in the US is studying is very important. It is very, very important, but it is not as important as you think it is. I know it's cryptic, but the reason I mention this is because the way we're brought up here, just to study, just to get your 4.0, just to get that perfect GRE score, that perfect SAT score, it only means probably comes about this much of your total experience. I'm not saying, please don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you go and flunk your exams, you don't go to classes, and you don't study or anything like that, but it only makes a fraction of your experience, a fraction of your resume. What they're looking for when you are applying to graduate schools, when you're applying to jobs after your undergraduate, is the other experiences that you've had. Have you interned? Have you had a job? Have you volunteered? Were you a part of a club? Did you do research? Did you do anything aside from your academic career is going to be valued much more, equally, if not much more, than your academic career. You could have a 3.8, you could have a 3.9, 4.0, but if that's all you have in your resume, then it's not going to bring you very far. So it is about time management. It is about adapting to the society. It is about adapting to the changes that is going to be very important for you to be successful in the United States. When I say time management, that comes when you're here. Time management is a piece of cake. You have your mom saying the tea is ready, right? That canal, the food is ready. take your clothes off, I'll wash it for you. You don't have to do any of that. But when you're living by yourself and you have to make your own food, you have to make sure you wake up on time when you have nobody else to wake you up. You have to make sure that you're eating on time. You have to do your own laundry, even if it's a matter of just putting in a washing machine, it still takes a lot of time and effort. You really learn to manage your time, because within all of that, you're still finishing your homework, you're still finishing your reading for your classes, you're still going to work because you have to work, you still are completing an internship, you still are completing a project or working with your club or volunteering and all that stuff. So time management will become very, very important. That was something I had to learn right away when I started undergrad at Nazareth, was time management, because no one was going to do it for me. I had to do it myself. A couple of other things that we tend to neglect a lot that I did, actually, looking back, when I think about it, I tended to neglect a lot was networking. Networking in the US is absolutely essential for you to be successful in anything. It could be, going into your professor's office hours and talking to them about your project. Taking that extra time to do that will go a long way. It could be meeting, if you want to work in, say, graphic design, meeting a graphic designer in the area, paying that $5 for his or her coffee will go a long way. So that was something I wasn't very interested in, because it just wasn't a part of my schedule. It took time. I had to ask them. I had to write to them. It's intimidating too. You're writing to someone very famous and important and saying, hey, I want to have a coffee with you. Can you meet me? It's not an easy task. We didn't have a forum like this when they were just like come in and talk to you or anything like that, right? So it was a very difficult and intimidating task, but it is also very, very important. In my third year at Nazareth, I actually started getting very, very involved on campus. I was very involved in different clubs. I was involved also in different research with my professors. I was also working as a student ambassador at the admissions office, which is where I networked a lot. I got to know the people a lot. And right when I was graduating, they had a position open, and they actually asked me to apply to the job because it applied directly to what my experiences would bring. It was a position for an international admissions counselor. It was a very new position. They have never had that position before. And I, as an international student, I was already very active in the office. I was already providing a lot of feedback. I was doing a lot of work there. So I got the opportunity to apply. And of course, I had to go through all the process of applying, job interviews, and those things are very intimidating. I don't know if you guys have done it yet. I don't know if you've already had an interview, for an internship, for a job, or all that stuff. Those can be very, very intimidating, but there are tons of resources available at your university. So don't hesitate to go and talk to people at your university, people wherever, and ask them for support and ask them for help. Nothing is going to be accomplished by just by sitting in your room and studying for the exam or anything like that. So definitely reach out and get help as much as you can. And I did that. I did that. They were very, very helpful. They really helped me prepare for my interview, and I got the job. It is a wonderful thing to have a job in the United States, trust me. And actually, it came at a time where I didn't know what I was doing with my life. Actually, I still don't know what I'm doing with my life. If you ask me 10 years later, I don't think I'll still know what I'm doing with my life. But as we talk more, you'll kind of get an idea, right? But it just seemed like a wonderful opportunity. It wasn't something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Working as an admissions counselor, it came naturally to me at so many times because I loved talking to people, I loved working with people. So it required a lot of customer service, it required a lot of working with people, which I thought I was good at. And it really just appealed to me, the work, and then it was a work that I was getting hired for, so I definitely decided to take it. So it was a little deviation in my ambition to do something for Nepal, if you may. But it was a very good deviation because it allowed me to travel a lot. I traveled throughout Asia working for NAS. I got a very good opportunity to talk to a lot of high school students. I came back here a couple of times, actually 3 times, right? All 3 years, back to Nepal to recruit and give presentations on Nazareth College. Talked to a lot of students here. But it also gave me an opportunity to work with very low-income high school students in the United States. this was a big culture shock, because if you think about it, you're just like, oh, America is great, you know, there's no poverty, there's nothing, everybody has what they want, they're probably rich and everything like that, and the truth is there is a different side to America that I hadn't seen. And it gave me an opportunity to see that. I really loved working with these students from low-income families in the United States, and that was when, along with that, I was also volunteering a lot with there's a place called Mary's Place in the US, where a lot of Bhutanese refugees who were being moved to the United States were coming in for help. So I tutored English a lot, and I also helped with translation and stuff. So throughout my entire career, at Nazareth, I continued to volunteer. I continued to work outside of my 5 to 10 job, or whatever, 10 to 5 job time, and continue to be a part of the society. Now let me talk a little bit about the job. Job was great. I thought I was so ready for it. Sometimes you just think you're so good at what you're doing, and you're so ready, and you go and you want to make a difference, and you want to do something, and then you realize you just have to still be a part of the society, you still have to be a part of the structure, and it doesn't necessarily work that way, right? I was an entry-level employee at the office, but I did have the opportunity to work with absolutely amazing supervisors. My supervisors were fantastic, and they allowed me to do whatever I wanted to do as a job. Professionalism was something that I had to learn. I thought I was professional. I thought I could just talk to people, you know, shake hands, be nice to them, and that's professionalism. But professionalism goes beyond that. It's about being on time. It's about volunteering when you had to volunteer to work extra hours. It's about taking up responsibilities from other people if the work calls for it, right? It's about doing much more than what you were necessarily doing, or what your job description would require you to do. It wasn't something like, okay, I have a job, fantastic, I'll just go sit at my desk and do nothing, and that'll be fine. It doesn't really work like that in the US. You have to have good work ethic. You have to show that you can do the job. Otherwise, guess what? You're going to get fired. Then you have no choice, right? Another thing I had to learn, and this is going to be applicable especially to my girls in the back, was clothes. I had such a hard time. I was getting by wearing jeans and t-shirt in college, and suddenly I had to wear very professional clothes, and it was not an easy task. So professionalism goes beyond just being and looking nice and shaking hands. It's a lot more than that, and that actually carried forth a lot. Coming from there to my graduate years as well, when I'm interacting with very high-level people and professors and professionals in my field that I'm interested in going in, that whatever I've learned and I've acquired, the skills at Nazareth has definitely transferred over in my graduate years. So I worked at NAS for about 4 years, and as I said, as I started working closely with the high school students, as I started traveling back to Nepal and working here a little bit, and really the whole interest that I had of working for Nepal for international development really came forth. It slowly became my interest, became my passion, and it was something that I just wanted to get back to. And working in admissions wasn't really necessarily allowing me to do that. So I decided that it was time to apply for graduate school. Now, I've already applied for undergrad, and then there's visa, then I had applied for jobs. So graduate school meant that I had to go to graduate school and to find jobs. And once you've gone through all of that process, to go back into it, to start back from, you know, step one, is very difficult. It's very intimidating. And when you're talking, like when I was talking to my parents and everyone, they were just like, well, you have a perfectly happy job. And I love my job, okay, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love my job. You have a happy job, you really like it, this has given you an opportunity to come to Nepal so many times, why are you leaving? And it's a valid reason, right? All your parents are always going to think highly of you, think good of you, and provide you advices that will make you think that way. But I knew that I had to make the switch. I knew that this was not for me for the long haul. I knew I wanted to get back into international development. I knew I wanted to go back and work with people in developing nations, or do something for developing countries, and most likely for my own country, right? There's always that. I've always had that nationalism, if you may, about how I wanted to do something for my country. And I just don't know how, I just don't know where, I don't know how I'm going to do it. but I needed to start somewhere, and going back to grad school was the best option that I had to do that. Well, I did have an opportunity to continue working and go to grad school, but then that would again take time from the valuable learnings that I would have been getting at grad school. I would not have been able to intern if I was doing that. You know, it would be very sporadic learning and very long. Like instead of taking 2 years, it would probably take me 5 years. So I just decided to completely quit. I quit my job. I did not want to do it anymore, and I applied to grad schools. And it was an intimidating process, again, like applying to schools, applying to top tier schools. The fear of, am I going to get in or not, was always there. The fear of financial aid, because yes, I worked in the US, but it's not that, you know, you don't save that much. So you still had to be very careful about your finances. And then I had to apply for visas and everything like that. But I had great support from my professors that I had kept in touch with from undergrad years. They were extremely helpful. They always helped me with making decisions over there. And they pushed me to go to grad school. So I did. I applied, and I'd gotten into pretty much all the schools that I applied to, and I decided to go to the University of Maryland College Park because of its reputation for public policy. And I really thought I was ready for grad school at that time. So this was last year. I came home last year for about a month and a half, and I was so ready to go to graduate school. Like, I was ready, I had everything set, I had all the classes picked, I had the place to stay, you know, everything was planned to the T. I was so excited about going back to school. So I get there and we start school, and I realize I am not ready for this. It is a whole new ballgame. It's going back to undergrad all over again. You know, when you're working from 8:30 in the morning to 4:30, and then you have time in the evening to go volunteer, to go do whatever you wanted to do, all the other extra things that you were interested in. On half weekends, like you could actually sleep in on a Saturday and a Sunday and not have to work and just watch TV and clean and whatever. You know, just a lot of time in your hand. And then you go back to school and not have any of that luxury. Like, I had to come home and do homework. I had to wake up early on Saturday morning and do homework and study. I had to manage work while I was studying. So it was not an easy transition. As much as I thought it was going to be so easy and I was so ready for it, it was not. It was one of the most difficult things that I have done so far in my life, because when you get so used to your routine, especially at this age when you're not 18 anymore and you can just do whatever you want, it is very difficult to get back to it. I think it took me a good 2 months to finally realize, okay, I am in graduate school, I have to start studying, I can't put off my assignments anymore. I think it was like November when I was like, all right, I'm in grad school, I don't have a great paycheck, I don't have a luxurious life, I have to deal with it for 2 years, and I'll be done, right? I had great support from friends, that was another thing. Learn to make your friends again. I had amazing people in my program. Actually, there's another Nepali girl in my program who's been through similar situations as I have, so having that was extremely helpful. Professors were great, again, networking and connecting with them right away, you know, just telling them, all right, this is, the thing is, they're never afraid to talk to you, and they're never hesitant to talk to you, and you should never feel afraid of telling them if you're having a problem. I realize that here we have a system where you don't tell other people about your problems for some reason. I don't understand why. But if you don't tell your problems to others, then how are you going to share it, right? You're just going to carry it with you, and it's not going to go anywhere. So I had great professors that I just go in and be like, I'm having a very hard time transitioning. I just don't know how to write anymore. I can't write 20-page paper overnight. It's not like undergrad. I can't stay awake all night like I used to. I cannot pull all-nighters, which you'll have to do if you're thinking about going to the United States to study. At some point in your life, you'll have to pull an all-nighter, which means you're not sleeping at all, okay? If you know what I mean. And it was great to have this conversation and talk to people who were going through similar phases as I was at that time last year. But throughout this time, I thoroughly enjoyed my coursework. It was great being back in the school, learning about public policy, learning about developing nations, learning about international development, all these development projects that are happening in all these different countries. It was just fantastic. I absolutely loved it. And then came summer, and in summer is when you do an internship or a fellowship or something in the US. That's one thing I actually never did as an undergrad. I never interned, and that's one of my biggest regret that I have in my life. I got lucky that I was working in admissions. They were hiring, they liked me, and they hired me. It just happened at the right time, but I don't know what's going to happen next year, right? But internship is very valuable because it teaches you professional skills. It shows that you've reached out and done other things outside of your academics. It also teaches you if you want to do what you thought you wanted to do, right? So in the spring of this past year, I interned at a place called Shared Hope International. I don't know why I always thought that I would be very interested in research, but I was not. I hated my internship. I loved the people I worked with, but I hated the internship because it was just research and I didn't like it. I wasn't talking to anybody. I was stuck in a little cubicle, and I did not like it. So I was very glad that I did that internship because that really told me, this is not what I want to do. There's something else that I want to do. So as I was trying to decide what I wanted to do for the summer, having come home last 5 years, every year really spoils me. So I was beginning to get very homesick, and I just wanted to come home. I don't think I've gotten this homesick as an undergrad. When I left when I was 18, I was just so excited about not being near my parents and just going and doing my own thing and not having to become a doctor, that I don't think I missed my home that much. But now I'm just missing home every day. Like it's incredible how things change as you spend more and more time away from home. So I was getting very homesick, and I decided to come home, but I needed something to come home. Have you guys heard of Nepal Ko Yuva?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So Nepal Ko Yuva is a NGO, kind of a nonprofit organization based both here in Nepal as well as in the United States. In the US, they hold events called Walk for Nepal, and they've done that in DC, they've done that in Boston, in New York. It started off in New York, they've done that in Dallas. This year they did one in London. So when they were hosting Nepal Walk for Nepal DC, I volunteered to be a part of it. I had absolutely no time to do anything in my life, and I just started to volunteer because I wanted to meet people, Nepali people and stuff. And those things are a great opportunity for you to meet people without looking like an idiot. Because when people are hanging out and you're trying to talk to people when they already have a click form, it's very difficult to integrate and become friends, right? But those events are fantastic ways of getting to know people, being a part of the group, and making friends. But that wasn't my only purpose. I really wanted to participate in Walk for Nepal DC. So I volunteered, I helped out doing the registration, I also walked, I also helped find sponsors for a cause that I was walking for at that time. And that was when I met Garmala. He's the founding person behind Nepal Ko Yuva, and he told me about this fellowship that they were starting here in Nepal. So I applied to the fellowship. It's called the Daipua Nepal Public Service Fellowship, and I've been completing working with the Ministry of Peace and Reconstruction here in the government for the past 2.5 months, working for a particular project with them as a part of my fellowship, and it has been a fantastic opportunity. As I said, I had no idea how I was going to make my way back to Nepal. I had no idea how I was going to work for Nepal. It's not that easy to just say, I'm going to do this for my country and leave everything, right? Because you have a lot of responsibilities in your life, and as you grow older, you'll have even more responsibilities in your life that you can't just let go. But I was looking for an opportunity to just still be a part of something amazing as Nepal Ko Yuva and Daipua, and still provide back to the country and gain experience from working in Nepal, in the country. It's been a fantastic opportunity, and the reason I don't have a PowerPoint today is because of my fellowship. I've been working late. We're presenting our work to a panel of ministers, including the Chief Secretary of the country, tomorrow. So after this, I'm going to go back and work on that. We're organizing the entire summit, and it's been an absolutely amazing journey working with the other fellows, working with the Daipua team, the Nepal Ko Yuva team, and most importantly, working in the ministry. It has been such an interesting experience, both good and bad. Bad in the sense that we all know what happens in the ministry, what happens in the bureaucracy. We know they don't get anything done. All of that is still valid, it's still applicable. I could see it firsthand, so it was a great experience. But at the same time, it was very interesting and eye-opening to learn about a lot of things that was actually happening. I learned a lot about what kind of, so I'm working on the implementation of a National Action Plan, which is the implementation of UNSCR's 1325 and 1820. I don't want to get too heavy into it, but it's working with conflict-affected women and the provisions that the government has for their relief, their reparation, to ensure they're safely back into the society. So anything and everything related to women and girls, especially in the context of conflict, is dealt by those two resolutions. So when I've had opportunities to go into like villages in Nepal that I've actually never gone to before in my life and talk to the women firsthand, because we read about it, we hear about it, but we never have that opportunity to go do it ourselves. So it has been an absolutely eye-opening experience, learning so much about my own country that I've never known before. And I'm taking this back to grad school next year. I'm going to see if I can do anything with women-related issues, continue on that path, and then see what happens next year. I don't know where I'm going to be next year. After I graduate, I would, if I didn't have anything to worry about, I would be traveling all over the world, because that's still one thing that I'd love to do. But if an opportunity prevails, at some point in my life, I do want to come back to Nepal and work, and this is the trajectory that I've had in my life so far. So that's pretty much all about me. I think I've said a lot about myself. It has been a fabulous journey. Just remember, it is always about the journey. It might not be clear to you. It's so cliche when I say it. It might not be clear to you what you're doing right now. As you said, as I said earlier, I don't know what I'm doing with my life, and I don't think I'm going to know ever what I'm going to do with my life, because my interests are very varied. There's always different things that occupy my mind, and there's so many things to do in the world than just one little thing that we usually tend to focus in, right? But utilize any and every opportunity that comes your way. That is definitely one thing. It might seem like, oh, I don't have enough money to do this, or I don't have enough time to do this, I don't have enough support to do this. But when you really want to do it and you go for it, the money somehow comes from somewhere. I don't even know. Making the trip back to Nepal this year was very difficult because I've been living the graduate student stipend and I don't have a lot of money, and whatever I was earning was going back into my tuition, right? So it's a difficult thing, and I really didn't think I would be able to afford the trip back home. The plane ticket's so expensive, but I was talking to one of my career counselors about this concern, and he just said, oh, we have a scholarship program here for students like you, why don't you apply? It's like, if I hadn't talked to him, if I wasn't just going into his office and just ranting about how difficult my life was, I don't think I would have ever known about that opportunity. So I applied for that grant, and I did receive that grant, which made this possible. So always look for opportunities, because there are tons of different opportunities. There are lots of people who are willing to help you if you go and seek help. Two people are sitting right over there who are definitely willing to help you anytime that you want. So those are just some of the valuable lessons that I've learned over the years. People are very important, no matter what happens to you. People will make you or break you is very, very essential. An essential thing to keep in mind, because they will help you reach to the top, but they'll also bring you down. And I've made sure that I've always treated my people well. I've made sure I've always connected with people. I love coming back and talking to you guys every time I come home. Selena, and it just been a fabulous journey that I've had so far in my life, and I am looking forward to a lot more. And I hope I can come back next year again and talk to you guys and maybe other students about the experiences that I've had. Okay, I think I've talked a lot, and I've gone on various tangents. Let me see if I missed out on anything. I've talked, honestly, questions? No? Yes?
You said that you work as an admission officer in your undergraduate level college. Can you tell us what you do in the applicants when you graduate the application from undergraduate?
Absolutely. The one thing that I said earlier, that your scores are the most important thing, that is the first and very important thing that I'll tell you guys, especially given how we are raised to know, you have to have, what is it, 2400 now? 2400 in your SATs. You have to have perfect TOEFL scores, you have to have great GPA, but the rest of your resume is blank. That is a red flag. That tells us that you're only looking to study, you're only studying, you're only memorizing things, you're not applying anything that you're learning to anything in your life, right? So when we're looking for applications, there are a bunch of different things that goes into it. Your application, obviously, how is it filled or completed? Your personal essay is going to be extremely important. So that's your statement of purpose, your personal essay is going to be one of the most important things for us, because that really allows us to see if you're going to be a good fit for our institution. You know, if you are what we're looking for and if we are what you're looking for. So do your homework before you start writing your personal essay, because different universities have different requirements. There could be extra questions that you might have to answer, extra essays that you might have to write. But pretty much in general, it's pretty generic, but still it'll help us to figure out, you know, what are you looking for? Is this something, are we a good fit for you, and are you a good fit for us? So, you know, there are two different things in it. Your GRE scores, your SAT scores, your TOEFL scores are going to be important, but it is not the deal breaker. It is not the absolutely the most important thing. Your high school performance is going to be important. The same, your graduate level or undergrad level performance is going to be very, very important. But again, there too, we can look at it and say, okay, well, you struggled in math a little bit, right? But you improved the next year, right? Or you just failed everything, but you have perfect SAT scores. That's very contrasting. So we really know how to look into each of the different application materials that you send us and understand you as a person. Your extracurricular activities is going to be very important as well. As I said, have you interned, have you volunteered, have you participated in anything outside of your academics in your school, have you seeked out a job, I don't know, so many different things that you can do. So we look for that as well, and that is an important indicator because, as I mentioned earlier, the fact about time management, I volunteered a lot while I was going to school. I worked in my gap year. I did take a gap year after high school, but even after all of that experience, it was quite a transition to be able to manage your time, be able to balance everything. So this will give you a good practice from right now, and also gives us as admissions counselor a sense of what kind of individual you're going to be, because we're all looking for a well-rounded student. We're not looking for just the 4.0, right? We're not looking for just the person who's going to pass all the exams and then graduate with honors and with a perfect 4.0 and leave. We are looking for people who are going to be a part of the community, and this applies to all schools throughout the United States. It's not just for, I have experience at NAS, but that's not the only place that it'll apply to, because you are going to be a part of the community when you go to college. It's very different. It's not like here where you have classes in the morning from 8 to 10, you go to class and then you leave and you go home and then you have a life. It's not that. You are going to be a part of the university. Your classes are going to be all over the place, depending on what time they're provided by, offered by the professors. You will be expected to participate in different activities on campus. Community life is great. They always have so many different things going on campus. Most likely you'll be living in the dorm your first year, at least your first year, you know, so you will be forced to live with someone that you have no idea about in a floor where people could be all sorts, you know, quiet people, loud people, party animals, people who don't talk to you at all. It could be all sorts of things. So those kind of skills are also important, which is actually, which we can tell by the activities that you've had. You know, so all of that is important. Bottom line is, it's all of it. It's all of it, but your SAT scores, your TOEFL scores are only a fraction of it. Does that help? Yeah. I tend to talk a lot, apparently. Anything else? Yes?
Could you please tell us the difference between majors, minor, and concentrations?
Oh, of course. Thank you for bringing that up. I was international studies as a major. Majors, the way it works in the US is that you have a certain number of credit hours that you have to finish. So at a typical undergraduate institution, it is going to be about, I'm focusing on undergrad. Grad is going to be about 60, depending on what kind of program you're looking at. But I'm focusing on undergrad just primarily because the audience largely is undergrad here. Typically, you have about 120 credit hours that you need to finish. Out of that, there are going to be general core courses that you have to take as an undergrad. You know, at my institution, it was the liberal arts core curriculum that you had to take. There was like 8 different courses in 8 different area. So even if I was international studies, I still had to take a physics as much as I hated it. You know, I still had to take a theater class, which is like, I've never done that in my life before, take a theater class. You still have to take a math, you still have to take a history, a literature. So it depends a little bit depending on different institutions, but that's kind of the general idea. So that'll form about 24 credit hours, for example, and then for your major, you're going to have to finish about 42 credit hours. So the difference between the major, minors, and all that is primarily your credit hours that you're going to finish. So for major, if it is 42 credit hours, and this is just random numbers at this point, for minors, you have to finish maybe 18 credit hours. The departments will have, you know, what classes will form that 18 credit hours as a minor and what classes will form that 42 credit hours as a major. So that's the primary difference if you're looking at majors and minors. A minor could be a major could be a minor, unless specified at that particular institution. You know, you could mix different, I could be an international studies major with a physics minor as well. But it's always easier to pair them up together, like pair similar or like majors together. So I could be international studies with political science or economics as a minor, because that would mean that a lot of the courses will overlap, which will count for both the major as well as minor. But if I was physics and international studies, that'd be two very separate things, meaning you have to have 42 credit hours and 18 credit hours. Does that make sense? So that's the primary difference, is in the number of credit hours that you're looking at. It's not really based on the course. Yeah.
You must have had an experience of reading application essays. Can you tell some of the overused and overseen topics?
That's a great question. I have had a lot of experience reading application essays. You know, application essays are very difficult. I always say this, not to scare you in any way or form, but it's a very difficult, like you would have thought I had written essays for undergrad applications, I'd read essays for 4 years of my life. I would know how to write a personal essay for grad school, right? And that was, I struggled with it so much. I think I spent so much time just focusing on my essay that for one school I completely forgot to send my transcript. Like, it was just so intense, because it is one of the most important things that you'll ever write. What I normally tell students, and try to use that when I was applying for grad school, was, you know, make it personal. It is a personal statement, you know, for a reason, and then there's purpose as well. So it depends on what your story is. But the thing is, you could have similar stories. How many of us here? 70 of us, and I'm pretty sure we can pick one thing that 20 of us are going to have similar experiences in, right? So maybe I'm not the only person who didn't want to become a doctor, but was still being forced to become a doctor. Maybe there are more people. You could write about that. You know, choose an aspect of your personal story, your personal journey, that you think is the most valuable in making you who you are today, and making you choose what you want to be. Does that help? I know it's very abstract, and think about that, like really think about that when you're writing your essay. It could be your grandma had the most influence on you, and then she passed away, and then you had a very epiphanic moment where you're like, she was very important, she wanted me to do this, now I'm going to carry forth her message into the world. It could be that, and 10 of you could have the same thing. But make it personal and applicable to you, because even if it was your grandma, your experience is very particular to you. You know, so grandma and grandfather is the one that's very overly used. Another very overly used one from international students is the fact that we're international. We know you're international, right? You're applying from Nepal. We know what Nepal is like. Most of the people know what Nepal is like. So you don't have to harp on the poor situation of the country. Like, you don't have to harp on the political situation. But talk about what the political situation has done for you. Like, what are the opportunities that you've sought out besides the political instability of the country? You know, you could talk about, okay, you had to walk miles to get to the USEF. Don't write this, please. This is an example as I'm thinking about it right now. You could write about that, you know. So it could be similar, again, like that's similar to all of us right here, like 100 of us or how many of us here, but you can make it personal to you. So, you know, topics, because there are hundreds of essays that we read, there are bound to be overly used essays, but it really depends on how you write it and how you present it, rather than just saying, my grandmother was the most important person in my life and then she passed away. I mean, I've had that experience, other people have had that experience, but make it personal. It's not easy. It requires a lot of thinking and a lot of work. Any other questions? Yes?
University, we have Nazareth College Park, the popular university.
Yes.
Can you tell us about the financial aid that undergraduate level students can receive over there?
That's a great question, and actually I don't have an answer to that. Because I didn't go to UMD as an undergrad, I am there at the School of Public Policy at the graduate level, so I only know about the School of Public Policy. Even if you were to ask me about other graduate institutions, I wouldn't know, because at the grad level it's very isolated. The isolated department, each individual department will review their own applications, so it's not as an undergrad where it goes to the central system or anything like that. So I actually have no idea how the undergrad process works at UMD. Just check it out, research it. It's all online, it should be all online. Oh, I forgot to mention one more thing. Sorry, I'm all over the place a little bit, but the school that I went to when I first started was a small liberal arts school. We only had about 2,000 total undergraduate students, so that meant it was very, very, very small compared to a lot of other institutions. And I actually wanted to make sure I went to a small school. It was very important to me, no matter the name, no matter the cost, no matter the place, that it was very important to me that I went to a small school. I knew that from the very beginning because I was going 8,000 miles away from home. It was the first time I'd ever traveled away, and I wanted to be a part of the community. And that's a difference that I've noticed now that I'm at the University of Maryland, which is about 40,000 students. It's so big. It's a little town in its own, on its own. It is ginormous. That having the experience of going to a small school really prepared me through all the different decisions that I've taken in my life. It has helped me become a part of the community, which is very essential. That way you get to know a lot of people will know you. It helped me network with my professors, with different staff members. It helped me get the jobs that I had at my university. It also helped me become a person, become known as Diva at Nazareth, right? Because if there were 20,000, there could be other divas in the school and they would never know about me. But it really, really helped because I was traveling very far away. I didn't want to become just one of the people amongst 40,000 students. I wanted really to become a part of the community. That also really helps you to make the connections and reach out to people because there are only going to be a very few of you who are going to do the same thing. And then I worked there, again, small school, same school. And then transitioning into UMD was another thing because it's now a factory almost because it's 40,000 students. They have a very systematic way. You have to do this and you have to do this and you have to do this for any of your paperwork to be processed, So it was an entirely different experience. But going to a small undergraduate institution really helped me transition into a bigger institution because it was easier now. I know how to make friends now. I know how to talk to people now. I know how to reach out. I know how to find things. I know what happens at the university, right? That I didn't have to go and feel totally lost. I mean, they still have support systems. They still have a lot of resources and services available for students, but it does get very intimidating when you're one amongst 40,000 students. It's a lot of people. So that was very essential. So as you're thinking about applying to your different institutions, keep that in mind as well, because it might not sound like such a huge step at this point, but when you're actually on that plane, getting on to go to your university where you have no idea about who anyone is, you might have personal connections, so that's fantastic if you do. I had no one in the United States. I was the first one to leave. It does become very, very intimidating and very, very scary. So keep that in mind while you're applying now, what situation you'd like to place yourself in at that point. Did I talk too much? Yeah? Did I just say everything about myself? I feel like you know me so well now, because you know everything about my life. Okay. Any other questions about living in the US, transitioning, applications? Nothing? Girls? No? Okay, then I guess that's it for today. Yeah?
I have one question.
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk about the strategies you use to apply for the graduate studies, like compared to undergraduate, that are much different when you apply for the graduate school? Because we usually have some graduate level students. So.
Well, the strategies that I use actually will be applicable to both undergrad as well as grad. One of the things that I wouldn't say I'm an OCD. Do you know what OCD means? Obsessive compulsive disorder, where you have to have everything the way you want it. You know, if you move that chair a little bit this side, it gets very annoying, and you have to have it a certain way. No, I'm not necessarily that particular about how I do my things, but I do like to be pretty organized, especially when you're making such important decisions as this, when you're doing a lot of research. I did this both as an undergrad as well as grad. I had folders that I had for each of the schools that I was applying for. Do keep in mind that even though it's the United States, there are over 4,000 colleges and universities. That means even though the application system and the application process sounds generic, it is 4,000 different processes. There's going to be one tiny thing this one particular university is going to look for that you're going to forget, and you miss the deadline and you miss the scholarship, right? You don't want to get into that situation. So when I start your research by figuring out what you want to study, and then look into different universities that have that major that you're looking for. College Board is very helpful, both at the grad and undergrad level. I think College Board is very helpful. But if you just Google, graduate schools for public policy, you'll just get a whole different list of schools that have public policy as a program at the graduate level, both at the PhD level as well, actually. So you just use Google. Google is a lifesaver. It is fantastic. And then after you find, like, say, your top 10 schools that you've looked at, or 10 schools that really catches your eye or your attention, or someone said the school is great, then look into that school. So in each of the folder, I have everything pertaining to that school in the folder. So it could be, the application process, like what are the things, like make a checklist, application, transcript, SAT scores, GRE scores, whatever, of that, and then also any particular information that stands out for you about that university as to why you want to go to that university. So keeping it organized in that regards really helped me. Like also, like if you're having communication with people, like if you emailed an admissions counselor somewhere, put that in that file as well so that it doesn't get lost, because it is important information, right? Or if you've received letters, or if you've received pamphlets, or anything, any form of communication, just all of that goes into that file. And then just look over it periodically to make sure that you haven't missed out on anything. Research is going to be very, very important. Research on your part when you sit on the internet and go through the university and all the different processes. Research downstairs through using all the books that they have here. Research using the staff here at USEF as well, and also like conversations that you've had with other people. Like I can talk to you about UMD's grad program. I can talk to you about Nazareth's undergrad program. Things like that. All of those will help you make a decision at the end, towards the end. And always reach out to people if you have any particular question, both at the grad and undergrad level. It applies to both levels about a particular program. Say you have confusion about why is political science under economics in your university. I don't know, random question at this point. Or why are two different electrical engineering programs? What is the difference between the two different programs? You reach out to an admissions counselor. The contact information are going to be on the website. You have no excuse to say that the internet is down. Like you could imagine when I was applying, internet was horrible. You had to use dial-up, and this was horrible. So you can easily get on the internet and use your Gmail and just email them right away and just ask, if you have any particular question. We don't have an opportunity of traveling all the way out to the US to visit, but a lot of the universities, both at the grad and undergrad level, will have like virtual tours. Even if you are looking at graduate school, but the virtual tour is going to be the same because the university is the same, right? It could be different departments. So that would help you as well to get a sense of what the university is like, what the feel is like. Reach out to professors, especially for grad students. Very, very important, especially for grad students, because these professors are specific to your program. You don't have a lot of all of the different requirements or anything like that. You are narrowing down into one particular subject area. So you have professors who have spent hours and millions of years in that particular area. So for grad students, that would be the most important thing. thing is like reaching out to your professors and the admissions department. But it helps to keep that organized. It is not a very simple process. You can't just say, I'm applying to this one school and then I'm going to go, I'm going to get in, and then that, like, it's going to be fantastic. It is a very important decision that you're going to make in your life, so do spend a lot of time doing the work required prior to leaving. Yes?
Can you tell us that individual qualities, like for instance, involvement in arts, music, dance, and all other qualities have in application package?
Well, that depends. That goes into your extracurricular activities, the ones that I mentioned earlier. So it could go into your resume. Have you guys prepared a resume? Do you know what a resume is? You know a CV. Yeah, so resume is also very similar to CV, but so a little shortened version of it. So resume is very to the point and short. You should prepare that as well and say hobbies would be art, music, dancing, and all that stuff. Or if you have had very professional training in learning how to play guitar, you could mention that there as well. But it would be counted as one of your extracurricular activities. Anything else?
Any final questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
This is not actually a question for you, but since you've been the International Students Counselor at your graduate college, is it possible for us to contact you during our application process?
Contact regarding what?
Like, for example, to get advice on our application essays or example, manager and stuff. Is it possible?
Yes, I will. Yes, absolutely. I think it is possible if you would like to reach out to me and ask me particular questions about certain things. But I do want to tell you this, and this is actually very important for you to remember as well as you're seeking help. As I said, reach out to your professors, reach out to your admissions counselors, but if you can find this information online, don't send them emails regarding the same questions, okay? Do your research before you send them emails and stuff like that. And do remember that they are busy. Their time is very, very valuable, right? So don't expect to send a full 5-page essay and then expect them to edit it and send it back to you. I say this to you because I would be very, very happy to help you with questions or anything like that, but I do have limited time, okay? And I'm not just picking you apart or anything like that, but there are just certain things I can do and I can't do because once I get back, life is going to be very, very busy. But I would definitely be able to help you. If you have questions, if you have anything like that, I would be happy to help you. I don't know about editing your paper because I don't know when I'm going to edit my paper. No, but I can definitely help.